Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It is your Capes Crusader, Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our good friend, ArtCrumbs, someone I've known for quite a while. First time we've ever had a nice little formal, I guess, conversation about Godsbane and everything in between. How are you doing, Art? Is it cool to call you Art, or do you prefer Crumbs?
Yeah, Art. Oh, it's fine. Anything's fine. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty chill. I'm not thinking about the names or all that good stuff. So as far as like what was the question? I forgot already.
We were just introducing. I was saying basically we've known each other a little bit, you know, through Global Comics and everything, but this is our first like formal introduction, like talking about Godsbane.
Oh yeah, so, for sure. Yeah.
Welcome though. How are you doing tonight? How's your night going?
Thanks. I'm pretty nervous, but it's been pretty awesome. So I spent all day, you know, kind of out getting about, kind of trying to like get the tears go away. But you know, doing pretty good, and I'm excited. And I've kind of kept this kind of like, I don't want to say under par and quiet for so long, because that's not exactly the phrase I'm looking for. But I've definitely like been waiting to start this project. I've had this in my mind for about 12 years now, and so now that I'm at the point. Now I'm at the point where I can finally start the pages and like make the serious commitment to it. It's sort of like, it still feels really jittery. Like it still feels like exciting and new and nerve-wracking, even though it's been 12 years. I'm so excited.
You're not only the writer, but you're also the artist, right?
Yeah, I do pretty much all of it by myself. I do have like a copy editor that goes over my script and my dialogue with me to kind of make sure everything looks good. There's no crazy plot holes. But for the most part, yeah, other than her, I'm pretty much by myself. So
what were your first steps into creating manga? Did you do any sort of like indie comics or anything beforehand, or did you just jump straight into manga? And what was some of your inspiration into going that route?
Oh man, so if I'm gonna technically talk about the beginning, I actually was studying animation first. I studied animation for 2 years at a community college in Colorado, and at the time I had to make some dummy characters to, you know, practice animation with. I created just a sort of two-tailed fox creature. Obviously he looked really different then, and then I had Coco, my bipedal character, to practice animating with. And I was kind of like jokingly drawing them together, and like my animation class was really small. It was like maybe 4 of us in the graduating class. And my teacher asked me, how do they know each other? I don't know. I just draw them together because you asked me to. So I was like, okay, let's figure this out. And so I kind of like kept drawing them together for fun. And then I transferred to Maryland College of Art and Design to get my illustration degree. So I was focusing more on just general illustration. I didn't know what to do with it. And my primary professor at Ringling was Gary Parker, who's basically one of the primary artists on Garfield for the last 30 years. And
that's really
cool. Yeah, I had thought about doing comics since you have an animation and background. And at first I was like, no, I want to do comics. It doesn't sound very fun. Like I was still on my animation thing, so I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But he got me into comics. And then in 2018, I interned at Tokyo Pop in Los Angeles. And so that was sort of the moment where I was like, you know what, like manga is a thing for me. I kind of liked comics. I kind of liked animation. I just love storytelling.
So what is Tokyo Pop?
What is Tokyo Pop?
Yeah.
Tokyo Pop is a publisher. It's one of the older publishers in the United States. They're also stationed out in Germany, but they do a lot of manga. They do a lot of like romance and love manga. Okay. They have like an international women of manga line. They have a line. So they do. It's an older manga publisher. Okay. They've been here.
I had no idea when you said that. I was like, okay. No, that's cool though. That would definitely be something that would push you into that direction. How did you get involved with them? Like jumping from, I guess, like comics and that sort of animation to an actual manga publishing.
So what I did is they had created an app a couple years ago, actually more than a couple years ago, and I was looking for places to upload. I was not really satisfied with some of the other sort of places you can upload comics like Tapas or Webtoons. I wasn't really satisfied with any of that. So I was looking for the locations, and it's kind of funny. At the same time, I found Global Comics. There was sort of like a beta going on. So I joined the Global Comics Discord, was talking with them a little bit. This was back in early 2018. Okay. So I was kind of expanding, and I also saw Pop just like their app. So I went ahead and uploaded it. At the time, it was called NOR, N-A-O-R. So it was a different series back then. I was kind of just testing it out. And I got featured. It did so well, and I got featured on their blog. And during their blog, one of the questions they asked me was, hey, like, what would you like to do? And I said, well, I would love to do an internship at a publisher. And a while after that, I got an email saying, hey, would you like to intern with us? And I was like,
dude.
Yeah, so that sounds great. So I went ahead and did my internship with them. It was about 4 months, and it was more like on the non-art side. So I got to see editorial work, I got to see PR and marketing, and I got to learn about all that good stuff that kind of goes on like behind the scenes, like after the art stuff. So that was very educational, very enlightening. I also got to meet Wacom and Graphicsly. Wacom, obviously, like the drawing tablets. Graphicsly is one of the major distributors for Clip Studio. Okay. And I ended up becoming sort of partnered with both. I was a resident for both Wacom and Graphicsly at San Diego Comic-Con in 2018.
Wow.
And so I was actually at the booth and being paid to be there.
No big deal,
It was like a wild trip from going from like middle of farmland Dakota in early 2018 to suddenly in the middle of LA doing an internship for a publisher.
Yeah, that is so cool.
It's just an absolutely wild journey. So through them, I was able to network, meet a lot of other people at other publishers, and I ended up going back to South Dakota for a while. And while I was there, I was like, man, I really wish maybe I should restart this manga and like actually.
I'm surrounded by so much corn. Get me out of here.
I know. I spent like about 2 or 3 years like rewriting it, trying new artwork, and in the middle of that time, the Shonen Jump Tezuka contest happened back in 2020. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this, and it was about a 49-page comic. Manga called Onami, which is about Pon, who is another character from this world that I have that Godsbane exists in. And so it was sort of like my trial period to see if I could even like really commit to a manga and like get it done, what it was actually like. And so I posted that Global Comics first, and it's still to this day doing really well. I don't know how, I don't know where people are finding it. I don't share the link anywhere anymore. It's like 2 years old now, but people are still reading it.
So that has direct ties to Godsbane, though?
Yeah, it's actually in the same world. It's actually the original creation myth lore to the world that Godsbane is in currently.
Oh, no, that is awesome. Real quick, we have Olivia over on Twitch stopping in to say hi, and May Apple Magazine over on YouTube throwing in some heart eyes and saying, yo.
Hey, May Apple, how you doing?
yes. May Apple was awesome. I love that interview with the Zenko. Such an awesome time, too. Did you do any work with May Apple at all?
I have kind of spoken with them a little bit. I actually did a little bit of editorial work with May Apple, Zenko specifically. She was helped give me a bunch of feedback after I did the pages that I did last year. Was sort of like my trial period. I sent them off to her. We did a little bit of editorial work, kind of saying, hey, I would change this, I would fix this, I would suggest this. So definitely, I've done a little bit of work with them, trying to figure out where I wanted the pages to go, and it was really beneficial just to hear that feedback, because you get creating into a void. Kind of when you work alone like I do everything by yourself, it's really easy to just get stuck in like a little bubble. And
because you don't have anyone really bounce ideas off of either, right? You're just bouncing them off yourself.
Right. I have a few beta readers. That's really it. They're not creators like I am, so it's kind of hard for them to give me feedback. They're more just there to give me feedback on how they feel, whatever confusing. But to have someone who actually puts manga to magazine together, that feedback I feel is really, really valuable to have at least someone who can give you that type of feedback.
So being featured, having something pop off in Shonen Jump, what was the next step for you? You seen that this was working, it was making some moves. When did you actually start beginning, making the first pages of chapter 1?
So the first pages for chapter 1 for the current version of Godsbane didn't actually start happening until January of this year. So right after the success of Onami and it was doing well, I started working on the next pages, and at the time I called it, but I was like, well, I want to put a test up. I want to see how it does on Global Comics and see if there's actually interest for it. So I put a whole bunch of pages together. I think it was about, oh god, I have to remember how many pages it was. It was about maybe 13, 15 pages. And so I got a bunch of pages done, and then I uploaded it on Global Comics. I think I had 3 updates, three total updates, and it did really well. It did so well, in fact, that at the end of the year for Global Comics, we do like a best of. Yeah. For the whole platform, there were just shy of 1,800 comics. Mine ranked number 5.
Oh, let's go. Yeah, that is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and that was just a test to Godsbane. I literally posted the last update, or it was called Ghost Child at the time. The last update was posted about the beginning of July, and I never updated it after that.
Mhm.
I was doing it, like testing out how I want to market it, trying to figure out what my demographics are, what my audience is. So I kind of spent that year or so kind of figuring out where I wanted to go, see if there was any interest in it, and obviously there is, since it did so well. So after it did pretty well, you know, getting number 5, I was like, yeah, let's do this. And so in January I went ahead and started making this new round of pages, kind of trying to build that buffer up.
Yeah,
so that when it came time to release it, we were ready. I actually had to push it back a little bit because this little cat over here got sick.
Oh no!
And so I lost a couple of work time trying to get her better. So I pushed it back just a few more weeks. But I'm actually really glad that I did, because it worked out really well for this interview. So I don't mind it at all. I mean, it is what it is. So
yeah. We have El Crudo over on YouTube stopping and say what up, man? Welcome. Currently running a campaign on Indiegogo, so I hope that's going good to you. He says it looks great. By the way, congrats. Yeah, I love the art in this. So when you went to a couple schools for art, was that something you wanted to do? Did you grow up like, doing art and loving it, or was it something you kind of just found along the way?
I kind of found so initially, I was in band a lot as a kid. I was in like 7 or 8 different bands. I played 6 or 7 different instruments. And so music was something I originally loved. And during my senior year in high school, I was like, nah, that's not for me. So I went into science. Like I volunteered at zoos, believe it or not, while I was in high school. I also volunteered at a wolf sanctuary shortly after I graduated high school. So going into animal care was something that I really wanted to do. And then I had some medical issues within the first semester of college. And I was like, well, with these medical issues, I think it would be really hard for me to like give the best care that I could to these animals I would love to work with. And so I wanted to find something else. And it was pretty sudden. And then I took like those surveys they'll give you and say, hey, let's see what you're good at. Let's see what you're into. Animation was on there. Like I drew a little bit. Like I really liked anime. I really liked manga, but I never like thought about becoming an artist myself. In fact, I almost failed my art class in high school. So art was not something that I know, right? Art wasn't something that I was like, I want to be an artist.
I couldn't tell. Like your art is amazing. So there's no, like if you would have told me that, I would have never guessed.
It's the art school in the many days of last sleep, and so I switched into animation. Well, I feel silly admitting this, but like what sealed the deal for me was I saw James Cameron's Avatar that year, and I was like, I want to be an animator. That's so cool. I don't know what it was about that, but that like sealed the deal for me. So
you see he's like going off on these like rampages. He's like, F the fans if they don't like the second one. It's like, James, chill, bro. It's not even out.
I know, right? Yeah, I'm like, can we just see the movie, please? Please. I want to see the thing. I'm hoping that it lives up to that. We've waited over 10 years for the next one.
I think that's probably what it is. Is like just how long it's been in production. I'm sure that has to take a toll.
Definitely the anticipation of the whole thing. So, but that kind of is what encouraged me. And so I went through, at the time, my brain was like, oh, I don't need to know how to draw for animation because it's going to do it for me. Like, that's how naive I was about the whole, like, animation art storytelling thing. And of course, I had a very rude awakening once I entered my animation. So I got my 2-year degree. That was at Ames Community College in Colorado. Oh, that was 2010 to 2012. So I'm going to date myself a little bit. And then after that, I was like, well, I still want to be able to do some form of animation, but animation at that time, like early 2010s, was going more towards the 3D. And I was not good at Maya. I was not good at any of the 3D modeling software. It was very tedious and very exhausting. And it made me just want to cry all the time. And so I was like, well, let me go learn how to draw. So I transferred to Ringling, which is in Sarasota, Florida. And I was learning how to draw, but what's interesting is I had like the animator's perspective of drawing and storytelling, very different from what I think the rest of my illustration classmates were. In illustration, I feel like I was focused more on like technical skill, raw skill, anatomy, versus when you study like hand-drawn animation, it's like pose and gesture, and it's more abstract is not the word I'm looking for, but they don't focus so much on like the nitty-gritty perfection of it. It's like, let's get the feel for this, let's get the emotions right, and that was more the concept or what I was interested in. And like I said, my primary teacher originally was Gary Barker, who's been working on Garfield for 30 some years now. He's one of my teachers, and actually the first project, oh my goodness, I don't know if you okay with me saying this. I did really bad on the first project. Like the first project we had to do was draw clowns using white and black marker, or white and black colored pencil on gray paper. I broke down crying because I hate clowns so much. I was so stressed. I think I got like a C on it. I did not do very good at all on the project. I did okay on the second one, and then when we got to the ink project, he's like, "Hey, like you did a lot better with this one. I know you have a background in storytelling. I've thought about doing comics," and I feel really bad because I'm like, I told the Garfield guy this. No, comics are dumb.
Dang. What did he say?
He just smiled. I'm sure he was probably like, what is wrong with this person? But he just kind of smiled and he's like, maybe I can change minds. And this semester I was like, man, comics are awesome. Comics are great. Like, I want to do this.
Yeah. So what flipped that switch for you?
I think it was just realizing that animation and comics and manga, for the most part, are all the same thing, just different forms of the same thing. In animation, it's all basically generally the same size, and then in comics, you're still having to think about all the visual narrative principles, things like camera angle, camera movements, you're still having to think about all of those things, but every panel or every frame is just a different size, and they're all like arranged together. They're arranged differently on the page. So having realized when that connection happened for me, I went, they're the same thing. I just have to draw that. Let's do that instead. So it was like, I don't want to say like it felt easier being able to do like comics instead, but there was just something. Plus, I really loved anime. I really loved manga. And that was sort of what got me interested in art in the first place. And so realizing that, hey, I can do this other thing that I really love and like not stress so much about having to draw 24 to 30 frames a second. Let's do that. And I can still do storytelling.
Is that what you had to do with animating, is like draw those frames? Like, oh, that just sounds like a nightmare. I remember, is it the cell shading or the way they used to do the Disney movies way back in the 70s where they would paint them? Like The Little Mermaid, I think they hand painted like a million bubbles. Like it was something like, it seems like so extreme.
It is really extreme, and that was the animation that I learned when I was studying 2D. Is you have your lines, you have your layouts, backgrounds, and then you have like all of your individual color layers underneath. When I was at Ames for my my internship, like right before graduation, I had to do like about a 4.5 minute animation with a team of, I think it was 5 or 6 people, and we didn't finish it. We only had a short period to finish it. We couldn't get it done. It's just so much work. And I still animate every now and then. It's just kind of fun, something I do to ironically, I do it to de-stress. I don't know why my brain works that way, but I'll do like a frame here, a frame there. That's basically what it is. I love to animate in Clip Studio. It has a really good sort of like cell-based style animation if you wanted to, the way that you can structure it. Excuse me. So I decided to sort of keep my animation practice. Like I still do it every once in a while, just for fun. But it's basically the same process. You have the frame, the panel, and you do your line art. And then for me, I don't color. I have my tones and flats, and and then the background. And then you just have your text visual instead of auditorial.
Do you do
whatever that word is?
Do you do the art traditionally, or is it all digital?
So I'm sorry. The art is all digital. I used to be traditional based, but I was going through so much paper and so many pens. I actually used a brush when I did my art traditionally before. So I was like, no, I don't like having to buy all this ink. I don't like having to buy all this paper. It was expensive paper. Deleter paper is not cheap. It's a blue line paper. It has to be boarded. Not cheap. So I was like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. So I was looking for different software to use, Photoshop, because I had really hard time just getting the ink lines that I wanted, which is why I was traditional. And someone introduced me to Manga Studio. Back then it was still called Manga Studio when Smith Micro owned it. So like, yeah, I'm gonna try this. And then I used it on their computer and I was sold. I was like instantly, what is this? I have to have it like right now. And so I bought it in 2017. And then I upgraded to Clip Studio once it was updated. I've been using it ever since. And I wish I'd started sooner with it. It just makes my life so much easier.
So what does it do?
So for me, as like to explain to someone who may use something else, it has, the big thing for me is a story feature. So think of it as if anyone's familiar with the design, it's sort of like you have like a story file management system where you can open up a file and you have all the pages. And then if you want to, you can click on any of those pages, open it up, and work on the spreads or individual pages individually, and then it updates like the master file.
That sounds amazing. Yeah.
Oh god, so much easier. You can batch export, you can batch process. It's sort of like a weird blend between like drawing software, and it's not as good as InDesign, but like the sort of efficiency that you can have through InDesign to edit things quickly is just really awesome. And then the other thing is vectors. Clip Studio has vector lines, and then the screen tone tool is amazing. You can set the frequency, the sort of like how many dots appear within a certain area. You can set the density, how big the dots are, or how dark the value is. And you can edit it at any time. And any layer, any image can become a screen tone through Clip Studio.
That's awesome. So it sounds like it just cuts like so much of that legwork out for you.
It does. It cuts out so much of the process, but it also makes it really easy to edit. So in manga, the biggest problem that I'm worried about when it comes to printing, when I'm ready for that, is that sort of like more. And what that is it's a resolution issue with the screen tone itself. And what will happen sometimes is you'll see like a strange checker pattern or really strange patterns formed within screen tones, and that's usually a resolution issue on the screens. And sometimes it happens in print as well. So that's kind of the issue I worry about. So.
I'm really happy you just explained that, because I was going through a webcomic with someone and they were sending me the files and that was happening. Like we were like, I kept pulling it up and I'm like, dude, it's almost like it's a PNG and the background's like invisible. Like what's causing this? And they're like, I don't know, it looks fine on my end. And I'm like, dude, like I'm losing my mind. Like, so it's now I know, like, hey, check your resolution.
Actually, it's so if you're going to post digitally, I mean, you still can post with the screen tone, but here's the other part that's cool by Clip Studio. The layer that you make the screen tone on, you can actually turn the screen effect on and off. So if you wanted to just be solid grays or a gradient, if you have a gradient in there instead, you can actually just turn that dot pattern off and it will just become like a solid image.
Oh, I got
so,
you.
And so that's what's usually recommended for online posting, because I mean, if you think about it, everyone has a different screen resolution, different sizes, and so your image is going to be resized in all sorts of different ways depending on what the device is. And so honestly, what I prefer to do is when I upload it, I turn all the tone effects off, so that way they're just whatever shades of gray instead. That way I don't run into that problem. And then when I go to print, of course, I'm going to have to do some practice prints just to make sure. But then say I get a couple pages that have issues, I can easily go into Clip Studio and just modify it slightly and then done. I don't have to redraw the screen tone. It should slide slightly and then it's done.
No, that sounds amazing. So, I mean, we've done a good job of filling the dots of you like in your art, but like, what about you as a writer? Since you're the artist and the writer for this, where does your writing experience come from?
So I learned about storytelling actually as a band player. When I was in high school, middle school and intermediate, middle and high school, I had the same band director. He taught band for all the schools. And what we would do is he was Mr. Crumb. He's like my hero because, learning storytelling for me was an audio experience. So what we would do is whenever we got a new set of songs, he would have us listen to it. And then he'd be like, all right, take notes, to yourself. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you seeing? And what we would do is we would take all different songs that we had and we'd create a story together as a band. A band really was cool. About 100 people. And just FYI, I was a piccolo player. I was piccolo if as like my primary, but I could also tattoo, because not every song has a piccolo line. They're sort of one of those like extra instruments. You only need one for about every 100 people. They can be really powerful. So that's kind of how I learned about storytelling, was through sound. And I don't know if you've ever experienced the flow state, but like when you get so absorbed into what you're doing, like it was weird. Like I felt like myself physically syncing up to the music I was playing.
And you just start vibing. I get it.
Yeah, you get so lost in it. You just sync with it. And so then when I went into animation, I kind of felt like I already had an understanding of storytelling and pacing, timing, that sort of thing. But actually learning about actual writing and storytelling itself has been a little bit of a journey. For me as a writer, I like to use Kishilton kits, which is sort of like Eastern. I'm not sure if it's exclusive to Japan. I'm going to be completely honest, but it's a 4-part act versus the Western 3-part act. So I prefer to use that method, and then I pair that up with there's like a 4-part act, in Western version as well, but it breaks the story down into 4 parts. You've got your introduction, your development, your climax, or called your twist as well, and then the resolution. And what I like about Kishilton kits is it doesn't necessarily have to be a problem. Like the climax doesn't have to be this crazy huge conflict. It's just a surprise.
Yeah.
Twist. It's unexpected. That's all it is. It doesn't have to be like hero and bad guy are fighting in this crazy dramatic meeting. Blah, blah, blah. Like it doesn't have to be that. It could just be surprise, something happens, and then after that, it's just the result. It doesn't have to solve the problem. It's just the result. I love that, and I love ghost stories. I love mythology. I love mysteries. I love things that really make me think and engage. And I'm like, I loved like the Nancy Drew books growing up. Like I loved Sherlock Holmes. I love reading all this different mythology. And that's what I wanted to create in a story as well. I love ghost stories, and like yokai were like the coolest thing to me when I was growing up. Yeah. I was like that weirdo kid that was always reading like ghost stories and like the stories you tell in the dark or whatever.
Yeah.
Like
those were so good. But I forgot what they're called, but it always has like the really awesome artwork in it. Like the really creepy. I
know which one you're talking about. It's almost like
stuck on the tip of my tongue.
Like creepier.
Yeah, it's the stories to tell in the dark, I think. I don't know. I remember they were like you can get them as a kid, and some of those stories like scared the crap out of me. It's like, dude, I should not be reading this as a kid.
We like to do it because we had a campfire growing up, and so we would like my brothers and I would sit around the campfire, like literally the stories. And there were some that I was like, okay, this is too much. Like I'm gonna skip this one because it'll scare my younger brothers, and so we're not gonna do this one. Or heck, forget them. It's gonna scare me. So that's kind of where I got my interest for storytelling. The storytelling that I try to do is I try to have the air of mystery. And it's kind of coming back to full circle to Godsbane. That's kind of the basic of the story here. Is it's a combination of mythology, there's lore, there's world building, and then there's a murder mystery throughout the whole core of the story as well, kind of underneath everything that goes on with Aros, Amat, Coco.
It's also set in the 1800s as well, right?
Yeah, it started in the late 1800s. And it's also set in sort of like Oceania, sort of like on the left side, sort of like between Australia and like Java, Sumatra, the Timor Sea area. Sort of roughly where it's placed if it were to be a real location. And as far as like, and I wanted it to be realistic, but there's a group of soldiers moving onto the island, so it's somewhat also of a history piece. There's a little bit of like history going on as well. But I wanted to pick a time where there was like, it's fantastical, but I wanted to be set in the real world. And so I'm like, well, when in the real world is there not really a lot of technology going on that the soldiers could use against them or whatever? And like, that's a good time to do that. When there's a lot of exploration in this time of world, or this time during the world, and that's about when that was, late 1800s. So I use a lot of inspiration for, those sorts of events. And it's kind of a similar theme, but that's not the main theme of the story. That's sort of like a background as what's going on. So I don't really focus on that too much.
I really love how deep the world building is, though. It just seems so intricate and just immersive.
Yeah. Really, there is actually one main reason why I picked specifically the year 1891. And this will be sort of like a little trivia thing, just kind of like for fun. This isn't too big a spoiler. So in the year 1891, in that part of the world, there were 2 eclipses. There was a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse. And the actual times and dates of the eclipses that really happened are also in my manga.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I had to look through the years. There are actually a couple to choose from, but the eclipses themselves are a major part of the actual story plot. And I did have to shift the dates just a little bit because of like some time sensitivity within the manga. I'm like, I can't wait that long.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they line up pretty well, and I think it's the final eclipse lines up almost exactly on the same day.
No, that is so cool.
Yeah, like I pay attention to that. I mean, like I've been writing this story for 12 years, and so I've had that time through all the different versions I've created to do the research, look at time period, like what sort of clothes existed, what sort of like what was the world like back then, what kind of animals were not extinct yet back then.
I love the animal designs too.
Like, thank you. Yeah, Coco was fun. Coco was. He was initially a kiwi. And I was like, well, I don't want to be a kiwi anymore because kiwis are kind of like regionally exclusive. But there's a bird called a rail that also exists in that region of the world, and so that's what Coco is based on, kind of more a rail. But I'm trying to give him his original kiwi look with some of the coloring that he has. And then Auk was initially based off of a wolf. He looks more like a fox, so he's now.
Well, it's almost like a snake too, like the way its tongue. Is that actually based off of like some sort of mythological god, or what was the inspiration?
So initially, Auk was just going to be a standard animal. He wasn't going to be a spirit. He wasn't going to have anything special about him. And then as I was reading the story, I was struggling to figure out a reason why he would have access to magic, why he would have access to any of that. And so I just kind of made him into a spirit instead. And I was talking with a friend about feedback for his design, and they're like, why are you limiting yourself to the realistic version of this animal? When he's a spirit, you can literally do whatever you want.
I really like the snake look to it too. It looked really, really like gruesome almost.
Yeah, Auk is he's really spicy. He's really spicy in his personality. He's very I don't want to say distant. He's very grumpy. If he were a human, he'd be the old man spraying people to get off his lawn.
So is that like a hint that he might? Is that a hint that he might not be the one that was the murderer?
I don't know. What do you think?
At first I thought so, but the way you were wording that, I think, ooh. Yeah, when my first initial read of it, I'm like, dude, this dude is a POS. And then like, you're like, oh, he's just a grumpy old guy. I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute.
I'm going to say he denies it. I'm going to say Auk does deny it. He does deny that he is the murderer. However, both Aros and Coco are very firm in their beliefs that it was him. And as we go through the story, you'll get to see the evidence. There's paw prints and there's fur that's the same color. And Auk was known to Aros actually came upon Auk and Valet in a meeting. So that was, and then Aros attacked Auk. And then at some point after they all dispersed, Valet was found dead later. And so that's why there's a little uncertainty in some people's minds. Well, hey, was it really Auk? But since Aros was there, could it have been him, or could it have been some other spirit that happened to catch Valet when she was already weak and vulnerable? There's a large mystery around who actually was there. But I'm really excited. So you will get to find out the answer. I don't leave a cliffhanger, but I believe it's much later in the story, kind of closer to the end, of course, where I do give you the answer. But I do give hints all throughout the story. That's why I wanted to copy editor to kind of help me. I dropped hints and false hints all throughout the story.
Ooh, so false hints are always good too.
Oh yeah, but yeah, Coco and Aros are definitely very certain. Hey, Auk did it. I saw him there. It has to be him. But people like Valet's mother, for example, her name is Nazak. I don't believe you've met her yet. She doubts it. She doesn't believe that Auk did it. And then, well, you already know this. You've read the script, but Valet herself says that it was not him. But
go ahead.
No, I was going to say Valet doesn't believe it was him, but she also has some doubt because shape-shifting is very normal in this world. So that's why there's some form of uncertainty because there is so much magic. Anything is possible. she kind of has her own doubts. Like maybe it really was him. Maybe because I don't want to give away too much. But even Fale herself isn't sure who killed her.
Yeah. So I
She
mean,
doesn't
we see a really interesting turmoil happen. Our protagonist is put in a rock and a hard place as a healer. He's not meant to aid like the evil beings trying to take souls from this world, but he's pretty much forced to do so if he wants to bring back someone he loves. I thought that was a really interesting position to put him in. Like, why force him to go through that?
So Amat is trying to destroy the island through, you know, the history of the island. His goal ultimately isn't to destroy the world; it's just to destroy their particular island, and put it back to the way that it was before. So when humans were created, was this beef? Okay, so I was just about to get into that. So in Onami, which is why I first, in Onami, you learn that humans were created as a gift, as an offering to the gods.
Mm-hmm.
They were created in the same form. Amat was offended by this. He's like, that's supposed to be a representation of me. Who, like, what is wrong with you? And so Amat is kind of offended that he doesn't like the gods of life anyway. He's a god of darkness, of the void. He wants nothing to exist at all. Like, he wants to be by himself. He's very selfish in that regard. And so anything that God just puts more stuff on his plate that he doesn't want to have to deal with. And so he just resents everything in general. And when he was banished from the heavens, he had to live on Earth. And so he has humans everywhere. And so he's even more angry about it. To kind of make the lore simplified, Amat ended up taking away the humans' immortality, and so he was forced into this position that he has now, where he also a courier of souls that die to Rojun, just like the land of the gods of the dead, sort of like their version of Hades, you know, the underworld. He has to take them there so that they can do the trial and reincarnation process, and he's forced to do this. So he's very resentful of the fact that he has to do this. So he's been like plotting his revenge forever. And he sees an opportunity. Aros is a healer, and there's only a few healers that exist. There's only about 4 or 5 healers in the world of Noble. And so he's been slowly trying to. Their job is to protect the humans from him, and so he's been trying to figure out a way to get rid of them. What a better way to get rid of them than to make them serve you and then corrupt them, right? So now that Fale is gone, that's one less healer in the world. Well, how can I get rid of another one? Let's corrupt Aros and make him serve me. And I'm sure, as you guys have read, Amat is planning something with Coco. And so Coco is another healer. He's sort of a temporary healer. He took over after Fale. He was her student, and after she died, he wasn't able to continue his education. So now he's kind of stuck as a student, and no one can sort of continue his education. And another healer we'll learn about is Coco, which is Aros' student. Okay. And so what Amat has basically done is he's slowly taking apart this group of healers that are supposed to defend the island against him, and he's sort of going to be picking them off one by one as we go through the story in the long run. Yeah. Now, Hokue is very against what Aros does. Hokue is he's like the antithesis of Aros. Yeah. He's like, I'm not going to serve Amat. I'm not going to do this. Like, I'm going to do the right thing. Like, I'm going to do the good thing. Like, that's who Hokue is. So you'll kind of see as we go through the story, Aros and Hokue kind of taking their different paths. Aros being like, oh well, like I wish I could do what Hokue does, you know, being good, and like that's what I should be. And then Hokue looks at Aros and goes, that's not what I'm supposed to be. So I'm not gonna do that. So you'll see a very interesting split. And then Coco, he's so adamant about being revenge on Hawk. Kind of more or less, you'll kind of see Coco slowly go into this downward spiral as Amat and Aros start messing with him. That's why Aros gave the vial to Coco, is it contains Oxolin. He knows how desperate Coco is to get that revenge. So you'll sort of
he wants one favor, and Coco doesn't even care what that favor is.
Oh, it'll bite Coco later. Aros does call on that favor later, And Amar gets Coco in a lot of trouble.
Hey, so I think right now, good opportunity. Let's go ahead and let's go through chapter 1. We actually have the opportunity to pull it up.
So with Godsbane, I wanted to try to think of something that could have sort of a dual meaning. So Bane is something that hurts something, like Wolf's Bane is like the antidote to like werewolves or whatever. So I was trying to think of like a Bane of something. Amat is sort of like the Bane of all the other gods that exist, and then Aros is sort of everyone else's Bane. Nobody likes him. No one likes him, and so I thought that would be kind of. Oh, you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
I thought that would be kind of interesting to sort of have like a silly dual meaning there, where the whole antithesis is like supposedly like gods against gods or someone against gods trying to destroy everything, and then the Japanese name for this was supposed to be the original name, and because I do plan on submitting this to Jump Rookie eventually, which is unfortunately Japanese only. Jump does. To hopefully get picked up in Manga Plus. I'd love to do that someday. But the Japanese name is Tatarigami, and Tatarigami is sort of like a god of like almost like apocalyptic, destructive god spirit that's just angry and resentful. And that was the initial name that I wanted. They go a little bit deeper than that, but that's just to explain it really simply. And so Tatarigami was initially going to be the name. But I wasn't sure if that would come across very well, and there's no easy English translation to that. So that's kind of how I kind of got
translation sounds so much cooler too.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it's Godsbane, is from looking at the original Japanese name that I wanted and the thing that I wanted of like what Amat is. He's like the destruction of everything.
Well, it almost looks like our protagonist is almost looking just like Amat here.
Yep. So that's actually his Miape. So like I said, Aros, everyone knows Aros is Miape at this point, but that's his Miape. His name is Mao. And Miape and the humans that they live with at the side are different. So they have their own unique personalities and quirks. But Miape tend to be the worst qualities of whoever their host is amplified.
Okay.
So yeah, they're fun. Mao is pretty fun. I'm sure you read ahead a little bit, so you can see he's a little impulsive.
So we start off right off the rip with a funeral. I thought that was a really interesting way to start things. I also like how you have the sound effects the way it's done traditionally in manga, but you also had the English translation underneath it, and I thought that was a nice little way to do it.
Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do the English or Japanese one. I figured this would be a really great way for me to learn that as well, to kind of help educate myself while I'm studying Japanese right now. But also I wanted to have that authentic feel. When I grew up, I was reading either Japanese manga or reading all English manga. And so for me, and like nowadays, a lot of publishers will do both. Like for example, I have Yashahime right here. So for me, like when I read manga now, I'm reading it in Japanese, and so for me, that's what feels most comfortable. And I've had some people say that they don't like that's kind of like whiplash to see it in two different languages. But I'm doing this for me, and that's what I would like to see. And that's why I didn't put in the English translations. That way, people still know what it says.
So when you did chapter 1, why start with the funeral right off the rip?
Initially it didn't, actually. Initially it started with a preview to the future, but I figured that would be kind of too much future, jumping back to the past and jumping to the present. I felt like that would be too much, and so I cut it just to the funeral. But the reason I'm starting here is I wanted to give the sort of basis for why Aros does what he does, sort of the emotions that he's feeling, how he's starting to process this. My family's military, and I've been to my share of funerals, and I've seen a lot of negative things in my life. Growing up, that was a really heavy theme for me, and so just the idea of funerals was unfortunately something I dealt with a lot when I was younger. So that was thing that I wanted to really get across to people how Aros is feeling, what his mindset is, how other people might be feeling, to really hopefully emotionally connect with people as to why he makes the deal that he does in future pages.
So he the way it was expressed, and I don't know if maybe this was just manipulation when it was being said, but he has feelings for her, but she never shown those feelings back, is the feeling I got. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, that is true. So healers are not supposed to have relationships. They're not supposed to have families. That could cloud their judgment if they have to make an important life or death decision. So in this world, they're actually not allowed to have relationships. The question kind of remains: did Fale reject Aros because she doesn't love him, or did she reject because it's her job? I know, but I don't want that to become like well known yet, because I think Fale doesn't quite know herself. She's trying to decide, like, she's very matter of fact, she's very straightforward, she's very, hey, this is what I do. But Aros thinks that she hates him, but I don't care, I love her anyway. But he also knows that her level of magic was very high. She was a very good healer. She was very good at making medicine, growing plants, botanicals. So while his feelings for her do impact why he decided to bring her back, he believes that she is the key to finally sealing him forever, so that he's no longer a threat. So he does have some clouded judgment, but I feel like his intentions still are genuine despite that.
And so right here we see a nice little page on Auk and kind of a little breakdown of him. And like I said, right here is, I loved how you went this way with the mouth, how it's like a snake tongue coming out.
That was a last minute decision. A completely different panel there, and my copy editor was like, it would be really cool if you could like see the inside of his mouth. I was struggling a lot with the tongue, and I was like, man, like this also just looks so boring. And that's when I completely decided to redesign Auk. I gave him a second tail, and I changed the mouth design. So that was literally a last minute change, but it obviously, it's gone over really well. So
no, I really like it. I thought it was a really like, I don't even know how to explain it, like menacing look. I know I said gruesome earlier, but menacing I think is more appropriate. So now we see we see the infamous meeting between the two, and he gave me you said Hades, and he kind of gave me that the devil vibe to it, like making a deal with the devil. That's kind of like what this kind of gave me.
Yeah, that's definitely sort of what's going on here. Amat leads, the gods of the dead. In this world, they're called the Umkarishu, but he leads all of the gods of the dead. There's 3 gods, and there's sort of like a guard of the dead. You've got so he leads that group. He hates the people he has to work with. Well, they're not the people, the gods he has to work with. He hates everyone. But he has to work with them. So he sort of oversees the whole, the whole transition of humans going from death to trial, and then trial to reincarnation. That whole process, he sort of oversees all of it. But he's very sly. He's very sneaky. He's very much like, I'm gonna try to get the best out of everyone. Like, making a deal with him, he's definitely going to come out on top. And so you have to be very, very careful when making a deal with him, because he will try to take advantage of you. And he's the type of person where he would really evil, stereotypical, like the mean stereotype of a lawyer. Like, he words everything very carefully.
Okay, I gotcha.
That's the kind of guy he is.
And for anyone watching, we are doing what's called I think it's called double spread. This is where you're looking at 2 pages at once. So that, to give you an idea if you're not used to that, these are individual pages. So for example, we're looking at pages 8 through 9 right here. So I really like this too. And when I was going through your script, it kind of looked like it was a little bit, because you sent me the scripts and you sent me this, and it looked like this part was a little bit different, like the verbiage when they were drinking the tea.
Yeah, I did change a little bit of that. I was trying to like smoothen out the words, and because again, words matter, and this part here is really important, where Aros and Amat are talking about like their contract actually is, and so I wanted to be sure that the verbiage works really, really well. So
we have Dustin Wilson, over on YouTube, stopping in to say congrats, Crumbs.
Dustin, I've known Dustin for a long time, back like even 2012, 2013. So Dustin's been a long-term fan of mine. So thank you so much, Dustin. I appreciate it. We also have Miso right here. This is my editor, Miso. She's very excited to be here.
I was like looking at the chat. I was like, "There's no way I missed someone. Who is it?" Well, we hope Miso's feeling better.
Oh yeah, she's doing least better. She's actually a little too hyper sometimes.
So this was a really interesting scene of events that happen here. I really love this too. You kind of did like the chibi design right here. Is that like more like something like that's done traditionally with manga? Like what's this technique called?
So yeah, that is, you know, that is called chibi. But what's interesting about manga, so I'm really glad you brought this up. One of the things that separates comics from manga is the way they handle what's called visual grammar. So visual grammar is think of it as like context. So for example, you have things like, you know, like the anger cross or the sweat drop, or even the type of fonts that's used, any sort of like cute little art that's hanging around. That is that gives context to the situation and helps with the emotional context or maybe any underlying context that's not clear. So this moment here is really tense. Like we just had a funeral. Aros is being serious. He's having to meet this evil god that's probably going to take advantage of him. I wanted to just lighten the mood for a minute. And so Aros is like, hey, I'm going to, you know, offer you my soul and I'm going to be really serious about it. And then Amat just thinks he's a freaking joke and just laughs at him. And I was like, I can't like draw Aros looking serious in this, and so like I needed to. I feel like I had to lighten the load just a little bit, and so I was like, this to be the perfect example of just Aros to be like, what do you mean not what I'm worth? Like what do you mean by that? Like so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna lighten the load a bit, and then like we've got this built up of, you know, Amat talking about why he can't do it, why it's not worth it for him, as far as like the amount of work it entails, or why Amat can't do it. Like he can, but like if he had the soul, he could revive her, but there are just too many loops that he'd have to go through, or hoops he'd have to go through to actually like make it worth his while. And so during this, Aros is getting upset. He's getting frustrated. He's like, he's getting angry because he's like, I need to have her back. Like he's just that desperate. So. Yeah,
and I love how even right here he's like, good. He's emotional and he'll be desperate. Yeah. He's gonna take advantage of him pretty soon too. So right here we see that he wants him to start working for him. What is this? Is this something that is an actual thing? I'm gonna have trouble even trying to pronounce it.
Sorry.
Sorry.
His little necklace there. So that is the I don't have like a specific word for it, but that's sort of like the lead eye. So one of the themes here is eyes and being able to see everything. Miape, the gods of the dead themselves, and the gods of the dead themselves, all the different gods, they all have a sort of mental link that they can all communicate with. They can talk to each other that way. You'll get to see that later on in the pages that I'll be posting next week. You'll actually get to see an instance of that. And then Amat he has these little eye spirits that kind of move all over the island. They appear initially as little harmless orbs of light, kind of minding their business. And by the time you find out what they are, it's too late. Amat likes to spy on different people, different spirits or whatever. He likes to spy on things. He loves being a control freak, and so he has these little eyes that kind of go and float out everywhere, and that's the sort of lead eye, the master eye. If the only way to destroy all of those smaller eye spirits is to destroy that one.
So did you create that on your own, or is that based off of anything?
No, I just thought that would be something really kind of cool to have.
That's so intricate. I love it. That is so awesome.
Yeah, I actually got the floating eye idea from Yu Yu Hakusho when I was reading it. And one of the earlier scenes where you've got the four war gods, Yusuke, Kuwara, Kurama, and Hiei are having to go fight. There's like this little annoying as frick eye spirit that's pissing everyone off, and I was like, wow, like floating eye would be like a really cool idea. And so I was trying to think of how I could incorporate that. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna put it on his pendant. And if you notice, Zai has a very similar one. So she's occasionally able to hack into that using her person. But so there's a whole, like I said, there's a whole bunch of lore and everything that's connected. But that's what that is. And then as far as this bird form that you're seeing here, so Amat has two forms. He has the Miape form, which is the sort of like winged human version, and they have beast form that he appears in the majority of the time. Majority of the time you'll see that version. Just easier to travel in, but also he's not allowed to use the Miape form because he took away humans' immortality. That was one of his punishments. The only time the Miape form is if he's appearing in a dream, a vision, or in his own shrines. That's the only time he's allowed to use that form.
So I like how you do that too, so he's not too like OP. Like you kind of give him a little bit of a weakness, so that way he's not just like totally wrecking face. I really like this too. So this was a couple year skip, a 6-year skip, and we kind of get a little bit more of a look at Coco. So who's this other bird with Coco?
So that's Sayo. That's sort of his advisor, his friend, who sort of is like, hey, I think that's a really bad decision that you're making. You probably shouldn't do it. He's very worrisome. He's very on edge. He's very, very timid. He's very anxious. So he's just a very, very scared out bird, and you'll learn more about him in future pages. But he's based off like a purple heron. But he's just very nervous all the time. He freaks out a lot. And so throughout these pages, you know, Coco learned that Ock's body was discovered, and so Coco's like, oh well, I want to be able to do stuff to Ock later, so I go grab the soul so that I can punish him. And so Coco runs off to go get the soul, but by the time that he gets there, there's already somebody there. So it's been long enough that it's just a bunch of bones. And of course, you know, someone possibly named Aros has to interfere with everything, because that's what he does.
So in that 6 years, like, what has Aros been up to? Like, because he seems a little bit more menacing this time around. Hold on, I'm trying to.
No, you're good.
There we go. So yeah, he's a little bit grown up. He looks a little bit more evil, you know.
There probably isn't another release now, so I searched everything. So.
Oh no, yeah, I was clicking on previous release without realizing I need to click on the picture.
No, you're good.
That was on me. But yeah, he kind of seemed a little bit more grown up and everything.
Yeah, he's been through some things. He's already been gathering souls. I mean, he went from the sort of like, when he was younger, you know, 6 years previously, he was really optimistic. He liked people. He liked helping people. And now he's spent 6 years living this sort of double life. That's for one very time consuming, so that's very stressful on him. But he also has a student to worry about, and there's part of Aros's past is coming into play as well. He had wanted to be a healer since he was a little kid, but his family wasn't supportive of that decision. And so he wanted to be a healer all this time, and now he's not doing what he originally wanted to do, and his decision does end up weighing on him. And as we go through the story, you sort of see Aros mentally questioning his decisions. Like, why did I do this? This is a bad thing. But he's also kind of gotten to the point where he's angry that, you know, life isn't going the way that he wanted it to. He's dreading the end. He knows the end is near, and he's just kind of become jaded over the course of this time.
I like this line too. Unlike you, I'm a real healer. So is Coco like not like as good as a healer as him, or?
So Coco never actually went through the final trial. So to become a healer, you have, you know, a certain amount of years of study, and then you have to go through a final trial. And essentially, this trial, which is again part of the original lore, is you go to a god, you drink their blood, and you die. And your soul is transported to a certain location. You have 3 days to make it to another location, and the entire time Rin, which is another Miape, is chasing you and trying to capture you. And Coco, because Coco or Fale died before Coco could finish his training process, he never got to the final exam. And Aros denied Coco as a student, because Aros and Coco kind of have a long resentment history. And then all of the other healers of the island also would not accept Coco as their student to finish his education.
So why put Coco as a bird, if you don't mind me asking?
That's what he originally was. He was originally a bird. He was one of the 2 characters that I created back in 2000, back in the early, back when I was studying animation. But as far as why a bird, I don't know. I just kind of started with him as that character, and initially Coco and Ock were the main characters. Aros was more a secondary character, sort of like a support character to Amat, the antagonist. But when I was going through the rewrite, my readers just fell in love with Aros, and they're like, "Wow, it would be really cool to see like a second story with it from his perspective." And I was like, "What if it was the main story from his perspective?" And so, they loved that. But with Coco, he goes through his own challenges. He kind of had this dream, this ambition, and now he can't have what he wants. He struggles a lot more because he's smaller. He doesn't have arms. He's like the size of like a soccer ball, so he's not very big.
So is he wearing like a helmet, or is that like his actual face?
That's part of his insecurities. So he's very adorable, and he hates being reminded of that fact.
Yeah, he looks pretty brutal with the mask on.
Right, and so he wears that as part of like a take me seriously factor. Like, don't talk, like if you tell him he's cute, he gets really mad. He's like, take me seriously. He thinks you're mocking him. So that's sort of an inferiority complex that Coco deals with, and so that's part of his personal character where he wants to wear that so that he can, feel a little more intimidating and not be so horrible.
So I thought it was really interesting too to have Ox Soul, have Aros have Ox Soul like that. Was that actually Ox Soul, or is that yet to be determined?
Yeah, Ox Soul is in the vial. So essentially, I don't want to spell too much about what Coco is going to do with it. Essentially, Ox Soul is needed as part of the plans that Coco has, and Aros was the one who found Ox body in the first place. And so he was able to notify Coco, say, hey, like I know where what you're looking for. I know where it is. You probably go there. And so Aros sort of set up the meeting with them intentionally. Okay. And he wanted to be able to make a deal with Coco to be able to require a favor later. So Aros is manipulating the situation here. He knew Coco really wanted this, and so he did this on purpose. And then later, Sayo is like, why did you trust him? Why did you take it without knowing what the favor was? Coco didn't even wait to hear what the favor was. And Coco was like, I don't trust him. I know he's up to something, but I don't care. Like, I really want this revenge. Like, I'm gonna make Ock pay. And so that's just part of Coco's personality. Like, he knows what he wants, and that's his end goal. And Coco kind of knows what he's about to do is illegal. He's going to have to break the law to do what he wants. And,
I love the advisor right here. This eyebrow, just like everything you need to know is in this look right now. This look of disapproval.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite panels I've had to draw so far, because Sayo is very anxious, very all the time. He is judgmental, but he's coming from a place of compassion because Sayo was Fale's advisor, and so now he's having to try to guide Coco, and Coco is just a loose cannon. He just does whatever he wants. He's got no real respect for the rules. He's like Barbosa. He sees them as guidelines. And so he just kind of skirts around the rules, does what he wants. And now that he has the opportunity to get the revenge that he wants, he's like, screw the rules. He's like, I screw the rules. I have money. I can do what I want. Yeah. Makes it go, screw the rules. I'm desperate.
So, and then that's what we're left off with is that's it. So real quick, we're going to put this link in the chat for anyone that's interested. Read this and leave a like. Any sort of help with the algorithm, leaving likes, leaving comments, that helps. Now, let me go ahead and exit out of this.
I'd be appreciated. I love feedback. I love comments. If you guys see anything, hey, maybe you should try this or maybe you should try that. And that's why I think also why I love mysteries is I love the speculation that kind of comes into it from the readers, seeing what they think is going to happen. That's why I was like, okay, I'll give a few bones to all the readers today, or all the viewers today. But yeah, I love hearing from people. I love seeing what they think. I love watching them speculate. My beta readers are speculating on everything right now. And I have a few people that know, my copy editor and my editor, they know everything. And it was really cool when I initially sent just the first chapter to my copy editor, and I'm like, hey, what do you think? And a little bit later, she's like, can I have the rest? And I'm like, yes.
Justin saying, spoiler, Sayo did it, spoiler.
Sayo, I don't think Sayo is able to stomach that. There's a couple brutal scenes the manga. I'm not gonna lie, I would classify it more as seinen than shonen as far as some of the brutality and the mental messing around that happens. There's a very heavy mental themes as far as messing with the mind. Who are you? What are you willing to do to get what you want? And that's kind of the theme for this manga is how far would you go to get what you want? And then also the theme of what's the right thing to do versus what's the best thing to do. Hokage and Aros kind of have different views on it. Like the best thing is the right thing to do, and with Aros, it's the right thing. That's the right thing to do. So they kind of have like their own conflicting views there, but it does kind of get very mental, especially once Coco kind of has his mental breakdown. Same thing with Aros, he has his mental breakdown. It's not very pretty. And then Hokage, his own journey. That's kind of why I was happy to bring up the trial part, is we'll get to see Hokage go through all of that process, go through dealing with Aros, kind of, he's sort of the lens that the reader has, looking objectively through what Aros has done, all the different things that he's done. And what Aros should be. Hokage is what Aros should be. So he's sort of like the foil character for Aros.
Okay. So with us going over chapter 1, what's next? I mean, how many chapters overall are you planning? What's your upload schedule looking like? What can readers and listeners expect?
All right, yeah. So at the moment, I'm looking at about 44 chapters. So it would be equivalent of about 4 or 5 volumes. Probably closer to 5 volumes. So that's what I'm planning at the moment. The ending, I'm going over that now with my copy editor. So the ending, I know the ending that I want. I'm just not sure how to like tie up some of the loose ends there. But I'm looking at about 44 pages, or about 44 chapters, about 900 pages. Okay. And I'll be updating every Friday. As far as the number of pages I'll be updating, because I do have a full-time job and I also do freelance work, I'm looking at probably 2 to 4 pages every single week on Fridays, as much as I can. I do have a buffer, so I don't need to worry about like missing weeks or anything. But yeah, definitely updating on Fridays. As far as the time of day, usually in the middle of the day, because that's my lunch period that I can devote to getting all the links out to everybody.
No, that is awesome. ArtCrumbs, I appreciate you coming here, breaking down Godsbane. This was such an awesome chat. And this is awesome too. So 3 to 4 pages every week. You have the buffer. How important is that buffer for you?
Very important, very important. So I had a whole bunch of NDA work that I had done for T-Pub Comics over the last couple weeks. I was helping them with their Amputation Capital series, and that for the most part I was able to get it done during my work hours. But I have more NDA projects that I'm working on, and so being able to have, because I got student loans, like I gotta pay the bills, man. So yeah. Having that buffer period was really important to me, and that's why it took me from January to July to get ready. Is I needed to be able to have these pages made in advance, because I know I'm going to lose NDA time, or I'm going to lose time due to NDA work that I'm working on. I can't even tell you who it's for.
That's so cool though. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm just super stoked for it. Like I said, I've been working on this story off and on for about 12 years. I've had about 6 or 7 relaunches, just testing it out. Like, it was initially a 4.5-minute animation, and then it became a thesis comic. Like, it was my senior thesis at Ringling. Like, I knew when I got to Ringling that I wanted this to be my thesis project. That's so awesome.
So is this going to be something? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. Like I just like snuck it into like all of my college projects, and then it was my senior thesis, and then I tried to make it a webtoon, and then I tried to make it like a regular comic, and I've tried so many different versions of it. I'm just so excited to just finally like get down and like commit to it. So
is this gonna be like the only thing you're working on in the foreseeable future, or are you gonna have any side projects that you might be tied to?
So I do have the NDA work that are for other companies that I'll be working on, and then the other side project I'm going to be working on is, since I do have some animation background, I am working on an opening and ending theme for the series as if it were an anime.
That's awesome.
I am working on that's going to take me a really long time to work on, and then I also am working on the lore. So my plan is if this goes really well, all of the creation myths, sort of the background for some of the characters like Zai and Rin, redoing Onami to do it justice, because I had 16 days to do 37 pages for Onami, so I didn't really do it justice.
That sounds like a nightmare.
So that's going to be my next steps. We'll be creating an anthology series of all these smaller creation myths and shorter stories to come after Godsbane is finished and Godsbane is completed. So that way I can give more background, more context to everything, and that'll be even longer than Godsbane is. But it'll be more of an well, just because there's 14 or 15 short stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so since Godsbane, I've kind of changed some of the facts, some of the characters. I'm having to go back and edit some mythology, but it's everything from the creation myths to some of the character backstories. It'll be sort of, I don't want to say it's the Silmarillion of Godsbane, but you know what I'm talking about, where it's like the backstory, the lore, like that's what that's going to be. And so between that and the animation and my freelance projects, there's a lot going on. I'm hoping to start doing conventions again. The first volume I'm hoping will be done either early next year or end of this year, with my schedule probably early next year. And depending on how well it does, I'll be looking at doing a print run.
So when you go to cons, like what do you do if you don't have a physical product?
I'm not going to cons right now because
so
I don't have.
You're waiting to go to con until you have the physical product. Okay.
I used to go to conventions. I had prints. I did a lot of fan art, just like a lot of other artists that go to cons do. But with everything that's happened in the last couple of years, I've not really had a lot of time to devote to creating more content. And I sold everything that I had, once COVID hit, and then that was it. So I didn't have anything else. I didn't have any more artwork or merch, and I was too busy with all the different jobs I was doing at the time, trying to pay off that interest while COVID shut all the student loan payments down. I was still making payments, knocking out that interest. So I really took the opportunity to try to help my financial situation versus focusing on creating content. And I still had to work. I was still going to work. I didn't stay home. So I was
COVID, like I remember when COVID hit, I was a phone salesman at the point, and my job made it to where they only worked me 20 hours a week, so that way I was right under getting the unemployment from them, but I worked just enough to where like I didn't quit. And it was horrible because that in turn like I wasn't able to apply for any assistance. So it was like, I was like, every month, like my landlord's like, hey, I'm going to evict you if you don't get this paid. I'm like, bro, I am trying. Like, tell me where I can get a job at.
Yeah, where I lived, we actually never shut down. And the job that I did, I had a $30,000 machine I had to work on, 2 of them. I was a direct UV printer, and so I had to manage these really large printers, and so I couldn't work from home. And since where I lived up in South Dakota, we never shut down there. So it was bizarre, like working as normal as if nothing was going on, and then
being phones, that was their loophole. Everyone needs a phone. You can't, it's an emergency. You can't. So we would sit there and no one would come in. I'd be lucky to see one, or it'd be tumbleweeds. And it's like, dude, like, oh my God.
Yeah, we had a lot of business slow because it was like factory-based custom work. And so because no one had money, our orders slowed down a lot, but like we still had to go in, we still had to be there. And the company I was working for, we also had like laser cutting, and so we did a lot of like the plastic face shields and stuff. We ended up doing a lot of that. So I ended up doing a lot of like laser cutting during that time. Oh
yeah, so they probably just okay, I gotcha. So let's go ahead and start. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm just reminiscing. Go ahead.
I was just, enough reminiscent about horrible times, horrible COVID years. Let's begin looking towards the future. And I think with that being said, it is perfect time for us to wrap things up. As always, though, as much as this is a podcast about promoting you and your book, it is a nice learning tool for anyone that might just be starting themselves. A lot of new creators watch this show. And, with that being said, I always love asking questions for creators that aims to help them. So for anyone out there that's struggling just getting started with their own story, whether it's the art or the scripting or anything, what type of advice would you offer them just to get going with it?
I think the biggest thing is to write out your 4 points. Let's make it even simpler. Start with the beginning and the end. What ending do you want? Like, what is the story you're trying to tell? What is the theme you're trying to tell? What is the question you're trying to answer? If you don't know what that is, or for me, I don't base my story on my characters themselves. I base it on what do I want them to experience? What do I want the reader to get out of this at the end of it? What emotions am I wanting to feel? When I sort of started writing the story, as far as like the actual like what I want to happen on each page, I had to keep that in mind. Like, what is each character, like what is the overall arching goal, and then like where, like what do I want people to get out of it? I think there's a lot of the reason why I like manga a lot more is I feel like there's a lot of emotional context versus like Kisho Tenketsu focuses on the who of the story. It focuses on the will of the characters and not just the fate, the what happens. I feel like a lot of Western storytelling is very what happens. There's not a lot of deep emotional connection to things. So you want to be sure that you want to depict will, you want to depict what the character wants, even if fate exists. Like what is going to happen to the characters because you're the writer. But I want to be able to connect to the characters emotionally. I want to be able to feel what they feel, and I don't want you to just tell me what they feel. I want you to show me how they're feeling.
You want to feel it.
Right, and so you really want to be clear on what your message is, because if you just write about some really cool like explosions or like stuff that happens, like that's cool and all, but like what's the point of it? Like just to show what happens, I want that. The other thing is start with smaller stories first. One of the biggest problems that I see is a lot of creators, the young creators, they start with this big One Piece style epic that they would love to do. They have this really big story, this really big massive story they want to do. Don't do that first. Start with smaller stories, smaller content, like 25 pages or less. Start small. If you can write a small story, you can write a big story, but start ASAP. Start drawing. If you want to draw your pages, start drawing pages now. I don't care if you think that you're bad at art. Start them now, because you have to learn about paneling, you have to learn about pacing, you have to learn about framing, you have to learn about composition, you have to develop the raw drawing skills. Like, start now with smaller stories, and then on the side, keep writing the stories that you want to write. Keep planning those, and really, like, don't be afraid to take the time. Like, I read recently that on average, it takes 8 years for mangaka to finally like become successful. It takes them 8 years to like get to that point. I'm technically, for manga, I'm only at year 4. I'm only halfway there, so I'm still a baby in the manga world. I'm still an utter baby, and so if you're expecting to like write a manga and be done and be happy and be successful, like your first manga is probably gonna suck. And so you want to get that awkward stage out, the awkward paneling, like the awkward storytelling, the awkward dialogue. You want to get that out as soon as possible and just get it done. And here's the other thing. You don't have to show it to anyone. If like your first few, if you aren't proud of it, if you aren't happy with it, that's okay. You don't have to. Like, move on to the next one and move on to the next one, move on to the next one. Like, don't let your fear of I'm not a good drawer stop you from making pages, because the sooner you start, the sooner you'll get the bad pages out of your system.
No, that is some awesome advice. I really appreciate that, Art. Thank you so much. This has been such a great talk. I'm so happy that we had the chance to break this down too. This is great. So when do you think chapter 2 is going to be up in its entirety? I know you said you're going to be dropping about 3 to 4 pages, but like an idea when you can get chapter 2 in its entirety.
So chapter 1 is a longer chapter. Most manga chapters are longer, the first initial chapter. So chapter 1 will be done approximately the beginning of about mid-August is when chapter 2 will start. And since I'm doing about 4 pages on average for, about 24 pages, it'd be 6 weeks. So for sure, probably sometime in October, chapter 2 will be finished and uploaded and completed.
We have a May Apple magazine stopping and say solid gold advice. Yeah, absolutely. I think that advice was fantastic as well. So with that being said, guys, it is time for us to wrap things up. I hope everyone is having a beautiful Saturday night. ArtCrumbs, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come here, break down Godsbane, and just give us a lot more information about manga. I had no idea. I've read it, but you gave me a lot of help with like terminology, the structuring. So anytime I can learn from a podcast, I always appreciate that.
That's what I try to do. That's why I'm on the community team with Global Comics. I love educating people, I love helping people. It's what I do. I do it in my own streams a lot too. I get people coming and asking for questions, and I just want to help people. So, but no, thank you for having me and inviting me. I know we've been waiting a while to be able to do this, so I'm really excited it was able to get done, and having to reschedule from earlier this week. So
that happens. That happens.
You're asking good questions. It's been super fun. So thank you very much for having me.
So, and chapter 2, when you get that complete, love to get you back on. Maybe do another deep dive look at it as well, and kind of see where you're at with things around that time too.
Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely keep you updated on the situation.
All right. Well, everyone watching, once again, have an awesome Saturday night. But most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.